5 most amazing opening ideas of the legend Garry Kasparov. Garry was famous for some of his opening innovations, and we're going to look at his 5 most famous here. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, otherwise I'll be on your case. I'll find you, I'll track you down. First example, like most of these examples, is taken from a world championship match, the most important kind of match in the world championship match. Yes, it is. And it's against Karpov with the black pieces, played in Moscow in 1985. And this was a key win for Kasparov, who started with the Sicilian, and they went into the so-called Tamanov Sicilian, where we have this normal structure here. Knight b5, still one of the main lines. We don't want to let that knight in, so d6. And now c4, the so-called Maroczy bind situation. Black develops, and after knight to c3, a6, knight to a3, Karpov must be feeling very happy with himself here, because he's got a little bind on the centre of the board, and he's controlling, gripping the position. Up to this point in time, everyone had gone bishop e7, and black's a little bit worse, but Garry now comes up with d5. Boom! Have some of that, Karpov! And this move just breaks open the position at the cost of a whole pawn, but look at black's pieces. They just fly into the game. This gave Garry a very important win, maybe one of the most important wins on his way to becoming world champion in 1985. Karpov now took a couple of times on this square, and you might be thinking, where's black's compensation? White has this tremendous extra pawn. Well, his compensation lies in this knight here. This knight is a beautiful piece. It can't be kicked away because white has a knight on that square, and after both sides develop very normally, you can see black brings all his pieces into play, takes the open file, pushes on the queen side, and eventually sticks that knight on d3. And this knight is certainly worth a pawn. It controls e1, it's in the middle of the board, there is a threat of b4 here, and Garry went on to win with his vast piece superiority here. So a lovely idea, that d5, and really a slap in the fish. A slap in the fish? Well, Karpov was actually called a fish by Korchnoi, but I meant to say face with a fish by Kasparov. Let's just move on to the next one, shall we? The next one, the World Championship match between Karpov and Kasparov, again in 1990 New York. Now, I am going to go through the opening moves with these things very quickly so you can see where the novelties came from. And this one was a King's Indian defense, one of Garry's best openings, best weapons. And they got to a position that has been seen many times before on about move 13, where black has just broken with d5, but white keeps the position closed down. And up to this point, most players had just played bishop d7, and white's considered to be a little bit better because of the pressure there. But Garry plays a phenomenal idea. He plays rook takes e3. I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, what is this amazing concept? Because there's no immediate follow-up after queen takes e3. For example, knight g4 doesn't even work that well because the knight takes c6 and the queen is attacked. But the idea is just queen f8. There is now a threat of knight g4, and black's going for dark square compensation. He's trying to prove that his bishop is actually stronger than a rook, because white has weakened his dark squares with some idea like f3. And I think for a beginner like I was when I first saw this, it was a very hard idea to get to grips with. But look at how black's pieces just have great activity. I'm going to whiz through the moves. This bishop, beautiful. This rook gains a very useful line there. The rook now comes in, and now the last piece is developed. And black is very solid in the center as well. Knight b2, the knight now opens up, so the bishop gets active. That knight may even be able to attack on the dark squares. White forces the rook over here, but Garry now threatens knight g3. The queen gets its way around, and now bishop d4, diverting the queen away from the king side to force, okay, only a draw, but let's remember a draw with black in the World Championships is a great result. And the whole concept I just found simply astonishing there. Giving up the rook for the dart squares for long-term play. Positional compensation. Well, I'm going for lots of lessons in the King's Indian defense, and this one, Karpov, Kasparov again. I'm going to whiz through the moves. It happens on move 19 in a position that's been seen many times before. This was in Tilburg, not the World Championships, and they played a mainline King's Indian where white attacks on the queen side, black on the king side, and they get to a position which is considered up to the point in time by theory to be a little bit better for white, because you can see white's progress on the queen side is coming very quickly, white gaining a load of space. But here we see a simply astonishing idea. Now, previously up to this point, black had tried stuff like f4, but after g4, things are closed down and not really, well, you're losing a piece there. And other ideas, well, where is the compensation? Well, Gary now comes up with an idea which just, again, must have taken Karpov by surprise. Knight takes g3. Poor old Karpov, so often just taken by surprise. And this is an astonishing idea. Let's remember, these opening novelties were often found when computers weren't strong. So they're found before the tournament by a team of helpers. The idea of this is to bring the other knight in and to target g3. Now, after f4, the game got very complex and eventually ended in a draw. But let me just show you one of the main concepts behind this, which is if king g2. Well, now we can do the double sacrifice. Knight takes g3, and after king takes f4 check, it might look like it's only going to be a draw with some perpetual, but black is winning. Eventually, the black queen will force the king into h1, and as soon as we get this situation, we don't have to repeat. We can try to get the rook in the game with g5. And funnily enough, there's no way white can stop this maneuver, so white is lost. The King's Indian defense in Gary's hands was just a spectacular weapon. Study his games if you want to learn about this opening. Yet another King's Indian defense, this time against Kramnik in 1994. It was only a blitz game, but Gary was able to unleash yet another astonishing piece. Queen sacrifice this time. Now, they follow the mainline King's Indian, and again, we're going to get to the main position after normal moves, and the main position does occur on move 12 in a position that has been seen before. Up to this point, g5, queen e8 have been tried, but now Kasparov plays one of the most astonishing ideas of the time and still nowadays. Knight on f takes e4. He leaves his queen on pre, and he only gets two pieces and a pawn for it. After the forced sequence, bishop takes queen, knight takes c3. The queen has to guard the bishop, and now rook takes d8. But what has black got in compensation? Well, he's got this fantastic bishop, which will come to life after e4. He's also got tremendous activity with the two knights here. These knights are very tricky. But maybe most importantly, white doesn't have any harmony with his pieces. So black can just simply improve his situation by pushing forwards. Of course, Kramnik probably thought he was winning here, judging by any of his interviews, but things quickly went wrong after knight takes a2 and knight b4. The knight's jumping in, the e4 pawn comes up the board, and white has not really managed to do anything, but black's been slowly improving. f5, f4, e3, ideas like this are all coming together, and the position is just horrible for white. Brilliant, brilliant play, and a brilliant idea yet again from Gary. Well, to finish with, we're actually having a look at an idea that Gary had with the white pieces, and this was played against Vishwan Anand in the World Championship match, the PCA World Championships in 1995. This started off again with an opening that's been seen many times before, the open rule Lopez. And the open rule Lopez is after knight takes e4, black decides to grab this one, d4. Now, they follow established theory all the way up to move 14. And on move 14, which we're going to see here with queen d3, white had previously gone knight f3 because, of course, it seems that there's lots of things dropping, and after the queens come off, it's considered to be okay for black. But Gary came up with some brilliant preparation. It wasn't just one move, it was a little series of moves that he must have had prepared in depth before arriving at the board. And it starts with bishop c2, this novelty. Now, on its own, this doesn't seem like much, but after queen takes c3, knight b3, we see the real point behind it. Gary's also going to give up his rook, but he's keeping Anand's king stuck in the center. It can't castle, and we have a queen coming out to h5. Anand now took on b3, and only here maybe did he see taking the queen would be very risky. For example, if he grabs it here, we come in with check, and you can, well, I think it's easy to see just how dangerous things will become with these ones coming. g6, queen f3 is a great move, and all the light squares in black's position drop. The game continued in quite similar fashion with knight d4, queen g4, queen takes a1, but after some more moves, bishop h6, this is just simply crushing for white. The queen is on pre, and we're trying to get rid of the g-pawn for the white queen to come in. I think I've even looked at this position, this move, bishop h6, in Garry Kasparov's most amazing moves of all time, but this is still probably his preparation. And if that bishop is taken, we can even just come to f7, because there's no g6 to block that. So again, astonishing concepts by Gary there, brilliant play, and he really was a master of opening preparation. Please like this video and do subscribe to the channel. It does help me make more if you want to see more. And again, I think these ideas really shaped modern day chess, some of these aggressive intentions that Gary came up with, and maybe you guys at home could even come up with a little opening idea yourselves with this inspiration.